So let's talk about our old friend Fujifilm for a second. They've been around for a long time. They've made a lot of films. Some of them are really, really good. They also like to discontinue films. Pack Film is a big one, but also very, very recently, they discontinued their color negative film stock Pro 400H, which caused a bit of an uproar from the film community. But we're not talking about Pro 400H today. Today, we're talking about another Fujifilm that they also chose to discontinue. Back in 2018, Fuji discontinued a really, really popular black and white stock that they had made for quite a while. This was Fujifilm Neopan Acros 100. It was a professional quality black and white film available in like 35mm and medium format, and it was very popular, and it was a huge, huge disappointment when they announced that they weren't going to make it anymore. But in 2019, it seemed that old Fujifilm had had a change of heart, and they announced that they would be releasing Acros II. Acros, the Empire Strikes Back. Acros, the Wrath of Khan. Acros and the Temple of Doom. Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water. And in 2019, Fuji actually delivered and reintroduced Acros. Now, currently, Fuji only makes one type of black and white film, and that is Acros II. In the past, though, Fuji used to offer a variety of different black and white film stock options. There was Neopan 400 Professional, which was discontinued around 2013, Neopan 1600, which was discontinued around 2009, and there was also Neopan 400 CN, which was a black and white film that required a C41 chemical process, which is a color chemical process developed black and white film, like Ilford XP2. Now, when Acros II re-released, there was immediately like a huge amount of like rumors and conspiracies and whatever surrounding the fact that some of the branding, like the packaging, the box of the Fuji Acros II film said that it was made in the UK. And of course, everybody kind of assumes that, well, it's Fujifilm, which is based in Japan, and all their other stuff is manufactured in Japan, so it should probably say made in Japan on the box for the Acros stuff. So of course this started a lot of rumors surrounding whether or not Acros II, the new Acros, is in fact a Fuji manufactured film, or if maybe this stuff was actually being produced by the UK film manufacturing company Ilford and just being rebranded as Fuji's stuff and isn't actually Fuji stuff. So Fuji might have just been able to strike up a deal with them and they continue the manufacturing based on the kind of existing technical information and manufacturing stuff and everything surrounding the original Acros, because it's very similar to the original Acros. So is it Fuji? Is it Ilford? Is it some kind of combination of the two? To the whole thing I say, it doesn't matter. I mean, Ilford has said it's not theirs, Fuji has said it's theirs. You know, it could just involve some level of manufacturing or finishing or packaging or something by somebody that isn't Fuji. So in the end, Acros II shares some like technical characteristics with Acros I. So Fuji Acros II. It is a 100 ISO black and white negative film, and it is also a professional quality black and white film. So it's kind of on the same tier as things like Tri-X and T-Max, and just like the higher end side of black and white films. So it can give you really, really nice results, but it's also usually more expensive than things like Kentmere and like Fomopan and things like that. Acros II is also a orthopanchromatic film, and I've previously talked about the characteristics of panchromatic and orthochromatic black and white film in the roll review video for Ilford's Ortho Plus. Panchromatic film is what most black and white films are now. They have a wide sensitivity to the color spectrum when you're taking an image, which means that it gives you a variety of tones in terms of some variation between the midtones and the highlights and the shadows. Orthochromatic film is film that lacks red sensitivity, and there are not like a ton of true orthochromatic choices out there for shooting black and white. Ilford's Ortho Plus is one of the biggest, most popular ones and easiest to get your hands on, and has a reasonably easy enough to shoot ISO of 80. Acros II is an orthopanchromatic film, so it kind of sits in the middle ground because it has reduced sensitivity to red light, which means that it offers kind of like a unique contrast depending, of course, on like the colors in your scene and what you're shooting. But areas that are red are going to appear slightly darker. So it's not like true orthochromatic, but it is a little bit different than regular panchromatic films. So let's take a look at some samples. And all of this stuff in their full glory will be available on the Analog Resurgence Patreon if you want to check that out. I shot a roll of it in 35mm and also a roll of it in 120 through the Mamiya Universal here, which takes large 6x9 sized images. Acros II is a premium film, and it has a really nice quality to it that other films kind of lack sometimes. It is a really smooth and low-grain film, and it looks really good. I like Acros II a lot, and I do think that the hype and the attention that it gets is pretty justified in terms of just looking at it from a quality standpoint. It's a really good film. And I would go so far as to say I think it's probably one of the best 100 ISO black and white films out there that you can get. I don't know if that's a controversial opinion, but it's just something that I kind of feel is true once I took a look at it and got the results back from it. Maybe one of the best black and white films in general, but there's a lot of black and white films out there. The orthopanchromatic characteristic of this stuff really helps to give it like a bit of a contrast boost in those darker areas. So it does have a slightly different look that sets it apart from other kind of just regular 100 ISO full-on panchromatic films. You can see the level of difference here because a true orthochromatic film like Ortho Plus from Ilford goes even further with this look because it completely lacks the red sensitivity. So you get an even higher contrast on things, you get that kind of like blown out sky, and just like the classic orthochromatic look. And a regular panchromatic film also has a wider range of tones in the images because it has a full range of that sensitivity. Acros II sits in the middle of those. Because of its reduced sensitivity, it's a little reminiscent of my experience with FP4, but I felt that FP4 does have still that wider range of midtones to it and a more noticeable grain. I've never shot the previous Acros 100, but Acros II is maybe, from what I've seen in terms of other reviews and samples, a bit more contrasty in the midtones with maybe deeper shadows in comparison to the original stuff. But I don't think it is a drastic difference. So if people have been holding out and kind of avoiding the new Acros because they like the old Acros, I would say just give it a chance. Just doing like some overexposure and some underexposure here. It has like a good range, some good like shadows to it, and just like a really nice fine grain as well. And when we step it up to 120, that smooth grain and like, kind of medium contrast gives you a really nice look at that size. So pairing this stuff up with a medium format camera is worth checking out. Because it is a premium film, using it in like a really premium camera kind of makes sense. Pair it with some sharp lenses and you can get just some really nice results. And it is a premium film. It's flexible and it can produce really good results for your shots. It's not as contrasty as things like Tri-X from Kodak or Forania's P3080 ISO film, but it still has character to it. Like Acros has its own kind of look and characteristics that set it apart from some of these other black and white films. The most off-putting thing about like shooting Acros II, I think, is the price. It is a professional quality black and white film, so it has a professional price tag to it. It is very much more on the side of the cost of things like slide film and portrait and Ektar in comparison to like Tri-X and T-Max and like all the Ilford stuff, which is cheaper than this. This is maybe the most expensive black and white film that I can buy. Here in Canada, and this is Canadian dollars, I pay $17.50 for a roll of Acros II, which is, again, more than Tri-X or T-Max or HP5 or FP4 or like anything else in terms of black and white. So it's less appealing to kind of like stock up on this stuff and like have a bunch of rolls on hand and shoot it really frequently, even though it is super nice and it is probably like one of the best black and white films out there today. Now, one of Acros's big technical characteristics that a lot of people really like it for, and is a big reason for choosing this film, is its low reciprocity failure. Reciprocity is a technical characteristic of film that is probably best handled maybe in its own video once I learn a little more about it exactly. But in really basic terms, it means that Acros is tailored really well for handling long exposures in a way that a lot of other black and white films kind of struggle with sometimes. So if long exposure photography is something that you're really interested in, then Acros II is definitely something that is worth checking out. So Acros II, super nice. Is it made by Ilford? I don't know, but also it's really nice, so it doesn't really matter. It's also Fuji's only black and white film, so it is nice that they've at least got something in that kind of range of stuff that still exists. I do think that it is legitimately a good film, and one of the best black and white films that is currently available. Acros II is not Acros I, but also, I don't really know what that means. Hey, thank you so much for checking this out, and subscribe and comment, like, and share it around. Talk to me, share your comments with everybody else about Acros II, Acros I, that kind of stuff if you have experience shooting both of them. Also, information down below for the Analog Resurgence P.O. Box address and the Patreon if you want to support the channel, and also things like Pro 8mm if you're looking for resources on like Super 8 and 16mm. There is more Pro 8 stuff coming soon, a little bit of 16mm coming your way for the channel, because I haven't had a chance to do a lot of 16mm stuff in a long time. Pick up some Acros II if you can, justify the price of it, but also maybe if you're working on some sort of project in black and white related work and you're looking for a really nice professional quality film that can give you like amazing results. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.